Hey there, Crystal Stearns here with the Crystal Stearns team at North Point Bank. I wanted to talk to you guys about the housing bubble. This has been talked about for several years now. 2018 was going to be the big bubble, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of my opinion on the housing bubble from my research, my professional opinion, and my personal opinion. First, I'll start with what caused the housing bubble before. So historically, we've really only had one. We had the Great Depression, we had things like that, but the housing bubble was really just the one, and that was in 2008. There is a movie and a book called Big Short, and I feel like that sums it up pretty well.
They will fail.
The housing market is rock solid.
It's a time bomb.
So what caused the housing bubble or the crash prior in 2008 was really lending. So a lot of it was lending fraud from borrowers, from lenders, from loan officers. There were investors that were buying mortgages that they thought were better than they were. They were being sold to them as A-paper mortgages, meaning like really good credit, and they were subprime mortgages, meaning poor credit, bankruptcies, things like that. So the majority of it was the banks over lending to people who couldn't really qualify. And some of that's the consumer too. You knew that you couldn't afford a $3,000 mortgage payment. You probably shouldn't have gotten yourself into that. But it's also tempting when someone says, oh, you can buy this beautiful home. And you're like, really? Let's do it. Oh, yeah. So there's a little bit of, responsibility on both parts. So how we have prevented that now is we have so much more paperwork. We do a lot of digging in and ask you a million questions and need a lot more paperwork to verify everything that you're telling us. So before, I could literally take like a handwritten loan application, you would sign it, I would FedEx the package to the investor with like a pay stub, maybe a W-2. If you were self-employed, you could state your income, literally state your income. Just had to prove that you had the business, and you could tell me that you made $150,000. I would take your word for it, we'd move on. So when the crash happened, they started to audit the people that foreclosed, and they found where did these issues come from and how can we prevent these from happening. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were a private entity until the crash, and the government came in and said, you know what, you guys, we had to have all these bailouts. You guys really, really messed up. We're going to come in and take control.
You get nothing. You lose.
So when they did, they came out with all the red tape that makes my job 10 times harder. So one of the things that they would find in the audits were people were lying about their tax returns. They would submit tax returns to us showing $150,000, and then when their file was audited, they had claimed $12,000 to the IRS. That's a real case scenario that really happened. So what we do now for self-employed is we need what's called tax transcripts. We get those directly from the IRS to make sure that what you have filed with the IRS is the same that you've submitted to us. With COVID overlays, we also need bank statements for your business to prove that you have deposits coming in to make sure that your business is still fruitful. So that's part of it. The other part is looking at commission-only income, looking at overtime, getting verification of employment from your employer to verify all of that income. If the hours vary, hey, this week you worked 35 hours, but you told me you worked 40, why is it 35? Because as the lender, we're really looking out for your best interest as well as the investor to say, hey, if you don't qualify working 35 hours, what guarantee do we have that you're always going to work 40? So that's how the whole housing bubble happened the first time. So now we're taking care of the lending side to make sure there's no fraud. I mean, there's things that could slip through the cracks, but overall, they're really watching all of that stuff. Right now, houses are selling for more than appraised value. So that's a concern. Hey, are we going to have a bubble because now houses are selling more than what they're worth? Well, a lot of this is because the market hasn't caught up. I've mentioned this before in another video about appraisal gaps. I think the market hasn't caught up, which was causing those gaps. That seems to have gotten better even just the past couple of weeks. The problem though is there's not enough inventory. So when the market crashed, the buildings slowed down and people weren't selling and buying as often because they were nervous or they didn't have equity in their home to be able to sell, things like that. So they were doing a lot of remodeling instead of selling. they were upgrading their homes and just staying put. So that caused a housing shortage because people weren't building as much. The statistics are last 10 years, underbuilding has led to 5 to 6 million homes that we're short on. So 5 to 6 million is huge. And then now you have all the millennial buyers buying. Millennial buyers make up for 36% of the market. So you have the baby boomers that are downsizing to smaller homes. You have the millennials that are buying smaller homes. This is creating an even bigger shortage on top of the fact that they didn't build as much for so long after the crash. So to recap, I don't think we're in a bubble, and it is because lending's gotten better. There's not enough homes. There's a ton of buyers. Rates are great, so you can afford more than normal. The only thing that I can see that could cause maybe things to slow down a little bit is if rates go up. That could cause people to not be able to afford as much as they could have before. And then the only other thing that I could see that could truly cause a bubble would be like a natural disaster. You know, Florida got hit years ago with a really big hurricane. If something big like that came through, that could cause things to slow down a little bit, but I still just don't see a bubble. I don't see it busting. So I still think it's a really, really good time to buy. Housing prices are only going up. Rates are only going to go up. So the sooner the better. So I don't think we're in a housing bubble. I still think it's a really, really good time to buy. I'm going to do another video on rental properties and why I love real estate for investments. So look for those and it'll explain more of the real estate market. But if you guys ever have questions, just let us know. Give us a call. My team and I are always here to help.